Show is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Promo code TGT20 for free shipping and 20% off. Just don't do that, Ken. I mean, Sam already gets nervous and embarrassed whenever I talk about Manscaped because you never know what I'm going to say to him, and it worries him big time.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right, guys, I am your host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpasture. I want to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
Doing great, Mike. How about you?
All right, and our special guest today, he reports on the Indianapolis Colts mornings on his Facebook page. And also, you got a website too, right, Ken Sterling? I think Kent froze.
Looks like it.
Kent! What do we do now,
have a guest on the show, Mike?
Yeah, it's like we got a mannequin on the show. This is like Weeknd at Kent's. All right, let's go ahead until Kent gets back on and talk Colts Titans tonight. We've actually got a good Thursday night matchup with a lot of importance in the AFC South. Are you back, Kent?
I'll get this. Don't you?
There you go. Oh.
Wow.
All right. So we're talking Colts Titans. Finally, an important Thursday night game in the NFL, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, Thursday night's kind of been, I don't know why Thursday night seems like a primetime kind of situation because Thursday night games this year, and dating back a couple of years now, they've been really sucky. They've been like Jacksonville versus Miami. They've been the kind of Thursday night games we've gotten, but finally tonight, we're going to get one that could ultimately impact the playoff standings and have two playoff teams in it.
Well, I think Kent came back. There you go. There's Kent Sterling.
Had to change browsers. I apologize for that.
Oh, that's all right. It happens. But, hopefully while you were changing browsers, you went and used the promo code TGT20 at Manscaped.
I sure did. I've never felt cleaner down there.
Okay. As the box says when you get it, it makes your balls happy. All right, so we're talking Colts Titans tonight, Kent. This is a huge game for the Colts. It's a huge game for the Titans. Probably even bigger for the Colts as they're a game back. And they dropped a game to Baltimore 24-10 last week that really they controlled for over half of the game. It's just the offense is too inconsistent.
Yeah, it wasn't good. The defense couldn't get off the field in the second half. I think that the breakdown wound up being over the first 18 minutes of the second half. I think the Ravens ran 32 plays and the Colts ran 4. You had a Phillip Rivers interception mixed in there early in the second half. That might have been a dicey call, but it was a terrible read by Rivers, a terrible delivery. And that's kind of what you get with Phillip. And the Colts are not dynamic enough offensively to be able to weather a storm that is self-created through a Rivers turnover.
Now, since about week 4, I've ran a suggestion by Sam, and he never agrees with me, I don't think. Do you think Jacoby Brissett would have more success in this Colts offense?
I do not. Jacoby Brissett, we saw in 2017 and 2019, he waits around in the pocket too long. He puts too much pressure on the offensive line. He throws too many balls away. He is, if anything, and this may be hard to believe, because Phillip Rivers is not dynamic. Phillip Rivers averages 7.7 yards per attempt to wide receivers. That's terrible. But Brissett is even less dynamic than Rivers is. So Jason LaCanfora wrote about that yesterday where he said it might be time for, in fact, he said it was time for the Colts to bench Rivers. I disagree because the alternatives, you got one who's kind of a lesser version of Rivers, and then you have a complete unknown in Jacob Eason.
What do you think, Sam Teets?
I agree entirely with Kent there because he's backing up what I've been saying for the past couple of months. I think Phillip Rivers is still going to be our guy because he has the highest ceiling of these players. We saw it against bad defenses. It was Detroit and Cincinnati. He has the opportunity to go out there and have those big games. I think Brissett's ceiling is much lower. And if you're trying to win a Super Bowl here, you have to kind of swing for the guy with the higher ceiling, I would think.
But Jacoby Brissett, till he was injured, played pretty well last year, didn't he, Kent?
Well, I think that it's similar to this year. The Colts played against teams that they could get over on. They went 5-2. You're right. They had the lead in the game in Pittsburgh when Brissett went down. But Brissett's a guy. He's not going to create anything offensively, but he's not going to get you beat. He's not going to throw interceptions. He will take sacks, and that's a problem. 52 sacks in 2017. There's just no upside. He's too indecisive in the pocket for me, and that is big trouble for that offensive line. And so I really think that Rivers. That's why they spent $25 million on him. The Colts do this for a living, right? You know, they spend $25 million not because Jacoby Brissett was an alternative if Rivers craps out. They believe they're all in behind Rivers. That may have been a mistake. You can argue that, but Jacoby Brissett, we know what that is.
Okay. I think we know what Phillip Rivers is also, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's a concern. If you look, I mean, he beat Tennessee in Tennessee. He beat Kansas City in Kansas City. He beat the Texans, who I think were 4-2 at the time. He beat the Broncos, who had a decent record at that point. So it wasn't just bad teams he was doing it against. And the other thing is this, his touchdowns to interceptions were a lot better. And I just think right now, I think the biggest concern, if I'm the Colts, is no Marlon Mack, because I thought Jonathan Taylor would be the answer at running back. Yeah. And I thought this would be something where the plan would be Phillip Rivers throws the ball 20 to 25 times a game, and they keep him fresh, and he can make the plays when he needs to. But I think losing Marlon Mack, is it safe to say Jonathan Taylor has been kind of a disappointment so far?
I don't think they're using it. I remember, and you do too, Mike. Sam, you probably don't. But when Edgerrin James played for the Colts, Edge would kind of hit his stride when he got that 20th carry of the game. And Jonathan Taylor is not getting that many carries. If Jonathan Taylor doesn't have a good first 8 carries or 11 carries, they go somewhere else. They go to Jordan Wilkins or Nyheim Hines. I think you've got to treat Jonathan Taylor kind of in the same way they did at Wisconsin, and that's give him the ball a lot, because I think he's going to get stronger as the game goes on, and that's not what the Colts do. So I think he's been disappointing, but I think that disappointment is of their own making.
Yeah, and I think no matter who plays quarterback, I think the other issue here, Sam Teets, is the fact that there's just not a lot of weapons on this Indianapolis offense.
No, T.Y. Hilton's been all banged up, and I was really hoping, I really thought he had a chance to come back and be kind of Pro Bowl player he was before in the past couple of years. But since last season, really, he hasn't been fully healthy. I know Michael Pittman missed a lot of games. I'm really hopeful that he'll become something in the NFL, but he's been hurt. And kind of just with no training camp really for rookies, it's so difficult to evaluate rookie receivers who are struggling right now, especially guys who have dealt with injuries. So it might be a little bit of a mulligan of a year for him. Come back next year, see what he can do. But there's just not a lot here. Even guys like Jack Doyle. I like Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle is a great player. He's well-rounded. But at the same point, he's not the same receiving option as someone like Travis Kelce, obviously. So to me, the pass catchers on this team are limited. You probably need to find a more experienced player in free agency. At least that's what I would try to do.
All right, we look at this Thursday night matchup. The Tennessee Titans, and this is a mind-blowing stat to me, Kent. They don't get hardly any pressure on the quarterback, but they still rank 3rd in the league in takeaways, which is really hard to do.
That is hard to do, and it is how that happens. I'm not really terribly sure. They signed Clowney, and if Clowney can get pressure on guys, then that elevates them in that area. But this is I don't like this matchup for the Colts, and that this is a pick'em is completely I'm kind of astonished by it, because I don't think that, as you would ask people who watch the NFL a lot, who's a better team? A lot more people are going to say the Titans than the Colts. I think that the Titans do what they do scheming wise defensively at a really high level. And it's those turnovers that allow them to, kind of operate with Derrick Henry and give him the ball a bunch, take care of the ball, put Ryan Tannehill in a position where he can succeed. I think this is a really tough matchup for the Colts.
Yeah, and the other issue here is Tennessee's 3rd down defense, which is the worst in the NFL, Sam.
Yeah, that's going to be a situation they're going to have to deal with here. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. To me, of course, I think the big matchup is going to be on the ground of the running game to me. is what's going to decide this game, because we talked about Jonathan Taylor already and how Indianapolis has not been what they were last year. I think the run game is huge for them, especially because it contains Philip Rivers and keeps him from making unnecessary throws, or you have him playing from behind. He can still make the big plays, but more often than not, you see some of the silly throws that leads to interceptions. So I think the run game is going to be huge. And just from a statistical standpoint, stopping Derrick Henry, and for the Colts, for DeForest Buckner, and for Darius Leonard, that's got to be the key. They're in the NFL this year with over 600 rushing yards. And Derrick Henry has 843 rushing yards. He's got almost 150 more, I think it was 250 more rushing yards than the third best player in the league. So, I mean, it's crazy. You have to stop this guy, because otherwise you're going to get run over all day.
Yeah, and I think the Colts are good against the run, Kent. But the other issue is Ryan Tannehill's turned into a pretty good quarterback.
He has, and they've got some weapons. I think their weaponry is better than the Colts. I think that Tannehill, ranked 9th by Pro Football Focus, and in terms of QBR, is a big point of differentiation against Philip Rivers, who's ranked 19th in both metrics. Tannehill, somehow or another, maybe the Dolphins were using him wrong. I don't know what happened when he got to Nashville, but all of a sudden he became really competent. And with Derrick Henry as that kind of bell cow, and I asked Frank Reich this week on a Zoom call, I was like, who would you rather have? Would you rather have the Colts kind of running back by committee scenario, or a bell cow like Derrick Henry? And he gave the predictable answer. He went with his own guys, which was patently absurd. This defense is really good at stopping the run, but it's a guy in Henry who's had success against the Colts. And he's a guy who can run over you, and he's a guy who can run past you. He has a unique set of abilities, much like Liam Neeson in Taken. And I think the Colts are going to have a tough time dealing with him tonight.
That was a good movie. I would ask Sam if he's ever seen it, but Sam's never watched a movie before, Kent.
Hey, Mike.
Kent, get this. Kent, get this. Sam has never seen the movie Hoosiers.
What?
Sam, oh, no.
What are you doing?
Sam, explain yourself. I mean, you've never seen Hoosiers. You're talking to two people from Indiana, and that's
I know. I'm in a bad situation right now. I'm kind of feeling cornered here.
You probably shouldn't even be allowed to live in this country anymore.
Oh, it's such a sweet movie. It's a beautiful tale of a state championship team with a castaway coach, and Ollie shooting the granny shots, and my God, Jimmy Chitwood never missing a shot. It's fantastic.
And it's got Gene Hackman in it, which every movie from 1980 to 1999 has. Have you ever heard of Gene Hackman, Sam?
I know the name. I'm not that in the culture.
God.
Wow.
He's never seen Slapshot, Kent.
Oh, it's on Stars like every day. You've got to get Stars. Hoosiers and Slapshot are on Stars all the time. Slapshot is a legit, great, hilarious sports movie. Best.
Yes, it had Paul Newman in it. You ever hear of Paul Newman, Sam?
Yes, Mike, I've heard of Paul Newman.
All right, I'm just checking. All right, let's get back to the Titans Colts. And I think what we see with the Titans right now is the fact that the defense has not played very well. The defense is in the lower 10 teams in the league defensively. But I think what you have here, Mike Vrabel, is a guy that this defense, it played really well against the Bears. It sacked Nick Foles 3 times without blitzing. And when you look at that, I think having a coach like Mike Vrabel, a hard-nosed coach, he wants to run the ball. He wants to get after you defensively. I think this team, starting tonight, will start to put themselves back in that conversation as a Super Bowl contender, Kent.
You know, I think they very well could. They've got the quarterback to do it. They got a running back to do it. It's the defense that's got to be elevated. Mike Vrabel's an interesting character in that vacancy occurred simultaneous to the vacancy where the Colts made a change from Chuck Pagano and went with Frank Reich after their dalliance with Josh McDaniels. So the guys from that coaching class are always compared to one another. The bloom's kind of coming off the rose a little bit in Indianapolis for Frank Reich. And a lot of people are looking south on 65 toward Mike Vrabel as what could have been for the Colts, because right now that the Colts defense is kind of carrying that thing, and they build it in a specific way, but they're not built to be tremendously aggressive. They're built to get pressure with 4. And who's better at doing that, like you said, than Vrabel and his Titans?
Yeah, I really like Mike Vrabel. I think he's in the top 5 or 6 coaches in the NFL, Sam. And Frank Reich, to me, I'm not a big fan of. I don't think he's a tough guy. I don't think he's a hard-nosed guy. I think guys like that will win.
You know, I really liked Frank Reich going into the year. I actually picked him to be the coach of the year in my preseason award prediction because I need something to write about.
Hey, just real quick, Kent. He also thought the Denver Broncos would make the playoffs. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, I knew that was coming. It comes up every show, Kent. This is something I have to deal with every day. But no,
it's not my fault.
Right now, Mike Vrabel. I think Mike Vrabel's a guy that maybe Detroit was hoping when they would pick Matt Patricia up. Maybe they were hoping he'd be that kind of guy. Vrabel's turned into a player who's also like his team plays very schematically well. They're put together. Like they're not just going out there and playing hard because Mike Vrabel's the kind of guy who can rile them up and stuff like that. You can do that certainly, but it's also this is a very smart team right now. And we see they have depth maybe a little bit in the defensive backfield. They don't have many star players. Malcolm Butler's still there. But they've got depth back there, which has made some plays for them. They rank in the bottom 10 teams in the NFL in yards allowed per game right now, which is something that for a team of that caliber is kind of surprising. But you look at the defensive personnel, it's not all actually that's shocking. The thing that saves them is they are much better in terms of points allowed. They're not allowing nearly as many points per game as you would assume. They're more towards the middle of the league in that category. And right now, if you're the Colts, I would just say control the game clock. Don't allow, use Tennessee's own game plan against it. Control the game clock, run the clock out. If you can have 10 more minutes of possession, 15 more minutes of possession than the Tennessee Titans, I think you have a legit shot of winning this game at a score like 24-17 if you can control the clock like that.
I think you got a legit chance to win if Phillip Rivers doesn't throw an interception. No matter, and limiting his ability to throw the ball 50 times would be huge here because I think the Colts can win this game if he throws the ball 28 times or less. I think you get over 28. I think they've probably fallen behind the Titans and they're panicking. And go ahead, Kent.
No, that's exactly right. I agree with both of you guys. Time of possession is sometimes overvalued, but not in the case of the Colts. That's what the Colts want to do. That's what they need to do. They did it really well against the Lions, going 2-1. They had over 40 minutes of time of possession, and the Lions had, obviously, under 20. That's what they're built to do. If they can control the clock and extend plays, put together 14-play drives, and finish those drives with points, they will win games. But if they do what they did, and you saw it against the Ravens, they played a really good first half. The Taylor fumble kept it from being 10-0 at the half. And then they go out, they have a 3-and-out, and then they have a 1-and-out on a Rivers interception. And that kills them. That exposes the defense, wears on the defense. And if you've got a tired Colts defense, they're going to be beatable in the fourth quarter. You've got to run the ball effectively if you're the Colts. You cannot turn the ball over, and you got to get your defense off the field. And hell, every team, if they do those things, they're going to win games. But the Colts must do those things in order to win games. They are not coming back from the dead like they did against the Bengals against these Titans.
No, but if they played the Bengals now, they wouldn't be able to come back from the dead either because now the Bengals are going to beat the Steelers this week and give them their first loss.
Mike, I'm going to laugh so hard when they win on Sunday.
Right? Called me a homer. How many times have I picked the Bengals on our Friday Pick'em show this year? Twice?
This would be the second time, I think. Maybe the second time.
Okay, and they've won 2 games. So I'm just telling you now, Joe, and the reason I say that is just because the Pittsburgh Steelers are undefeated. They're really not that good offensively, and Joe Burrow's going to score some points. I'm not sitting here saying the Bengals are better than the Steelers. I'm just saying they're going to beat the Steelers' ass Sunday, Sam.
I'm really hoping for some performance from defense next. We didn't get that, Alice. If we can sack Joe Burrow 5 to 7 times, because they've done that in the past this year already. If you get Joe Burrow 5 to 7 times, it makes the game a lot easier.
I think if you sack Joe Burrow 5 times, the Bengals will win because you should get him 9 to 10 with your defense. I'm good with
You know what?
5.
You got a point.
Yeah, 5's fine. Hell, Joe Burrow keep it. It's not like Joe Burrow's not. I mean, Joe Burrow every game looks like that start of Saving Private Ryan. Where they get off the amphibious thing at the landing and they're running up and the bullets are flying. Have you ever seen Saving Private Ryan?
Yes, I have, Mike. I know what Saving Private Ryan is. Okay.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yes, Mike. I know it. I've seen the movie.
So you've heard of Tom Hanks?
Yeah, I know it. Yes, Mike. I know Tom Hanks is.
I'm just checking. I mean, I know you're like 12 sitting in a dorm room in Clemson. We're going to call him Doogie Howser from now on. Have you ever heard of Doogie Howser, Sam?
No.
I'll take that as a no.
Doogie Howser was like a 12-year-old genius doctor who went to college when he was like 8, right, Kent?
The great Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah. You've never seen Doogie Howser either. Damn, never even heard of him. He's never seen All in the Family or Sanford and Son either, Ken.
Oh, now that's tragic.
It is.
So much. All you have to do. What else are you doing during this COVID thing? Sit down. I got a nephew whose roommate.
He's manscaping, Kent.
From start to finish in order. That's what he's doing in his dorm room today. All you have to do, it's there on Netflix or wherever you want. You can watch just watch the first season of All in the Family. Watch the first season of Sanford and Son. Watch then Slapshot and Hoosiers. You can do that in 16 hours.
There you go, Sam.
Maybe. I'm stressing a little bit. I'm trying to get a job, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do after college. So that's a little bit of a pulling me down a little bit.
Well, you could learn about life.
That went really quiet there.
Well,
you can learn from life if you watch Archie Bunker.
You're going to be interviewed by managers who are going to drop cultural bombs in your lap, and you're going to have no idea how to respond. You can show yourself when you interview with like a 60-year-old media manager, and he says, it sounds like Archie Bunker. Or, oh, yeah, the Sanford and Son theme, that Damon Wilson, he was something. You're going to have nothing to come back with.
That's true. I'm going to smile and nod, Kent. Just hope I can get through it.
All right. Bobby Sheridan just chimed in on Twitter. He said, way to battle those guys at Sam Teets. Don't let them gang up on you.
Thanks, Bobby. I appreciate it.
Even though we know Bobby's watching the show thinking, damn, he's never seen Hoosiers or Slapshot.
Yeah.
All right. Did you hear about the NFL? Oh, wait, we got to pick the game tonight. Is everybody picking the Titans? Kent?
Yeah, I'm picking the Titans.
Sam?
Yeah, I'm staying with the Titans.
I'm staying with the Titans also. Did you hear about the Super Bowl performance for this next Super Bowl? Who the halftime performer is going to be?
No.
And this is not spelled wrong.
The Weeknd, right?
Yeah. What in the hell is the Weeknd?
He's got wacky hair. I know that.
You're just guessing, Sam. Or you're just guessing, Kent, because all these kids have wacky hair.
No, isn't it, Sam? You know the Weeknd. His hair's all.
No, he's right. He's right. He's technically right. But
okay,
he was really popular. I was in high when when he got there. One song was really good. I was in high school. I haven't really heard much from him in the last 4 years. I'll be honest.
What was the song that was really good, Sam?
I don't know. It was 4 years ago. Let me see if I can find it now.
Okay, he does have big hair. He's got a website called theweekend.com. And why does he spray? Well, that's messed up. This is kind of scary when I look at the website. He's got blood all over his face.
Oh, that's not good.
What in the hell?
It's probably some cover or something like that for an album. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not too excited about the Weeknd.
It wasn't. I forget. I don't know how it's going to be. How halftime performance is going to go this year with how they're doing it. But all I know is he was popular a couple years ago for, I think it was Starboy was the name of the song. I'm pretty sure. But that was maybe 4 or 5 years ago at this point.
What I do at halftime of the Super Bowl is go to the kitchen and make sure my wife's not doing shots. That's what I do at halftime of the Super Bowl. Who the performer is of no consequence to me.
Why isn't your wife allowed to do shots? Why can't your wife do shots during halftime of the Super Bowl, Kent?
Oh, she can't do a third shot. Okay. Third shot, we got problems.
Okay. But I don't know. Bob Seger probably should be allowed to do it this year. What do you think, Kent?
That'd be tremendous if it's in Detroit. I know it's in Tampa. I don't even. But he's never done a Super Bowl halftime, has he?
No, Bob Seger should. Have you ever heard of Bob Seger, Sam?
Yeah, I know Bob Seger is. Don't ask me one of his songs. I can't help you with that. But I know who he is.
You can't name one Bob Seger song?
Oh, my goodness. I'll tell you what, you will never see a concert where a guy enjoys himself more on stage than Bob Seger. He is great live. I know he's in his 70s. I know it's like going and seeing Neil Diamond or some crazy thing, but it's still a good show. I don't know whether he's retired or not, but last time I saw Bob, like 3 or 4 years ago, he was great.
All right. Bobby Sheridan says, how could you pick the Titans at Sam Teets? I just got through listening to your correct analysis. Colts plus the under is the play tonight. But didn't you go officially pick the Titans? These old guys have the wrong choice in this game. I hate to tell you this, Bobby Sheridan, but you're damn near as old. You're the same age as me, Bobby. So anytime Bobby wants to come on and pick the game, I could send Bobby a link to the show right now, and he can tell us why the Colts are going to win. Bobby, you're going to be wrong tonight. The Tennessee Titans will beat the Colts 37-10.
Ooh, and that puts it almost right on the number for the over-under.
Yeah, that is just to make it close. I don't know what the under or over-under number is. I don't hang out at casinos and seedy bookie places.
I hate 48.5.
That's just because I don't know any seedy bookie places.
Goal, it's going to be a turnover. It's 48.5 is square dead on what I would pick it. I think you're right. I think it's, 27-20, something like that. But I don't think if the Colts win, the under is going to carry.
Yeah, I believe that too. So Bobby makes the correct pick if the Colts win. I just don't see the Colts winning tonight. I think the difference here is Ryan Tannehill. And that's it. I would put it like this. If you look at the offense, I mean, the Titans O-line's not bad. I don't think they're as good as the Colts, but the O-line's pretty solid. The running game with Derrick Henry is much better. The quarterback with Tannehill is better. A.J. Brown, they got better wide receivers. On defense, I think you've just got a better guy coaching the defense. Now, I think the Colts have the better front seven, but I think the Titans have the better secondary.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's perfectly said.
All right. So, Bobby, you're wrong. And Bobby can come on anytime he wants to pick it. Bobby, since you're listening, you can come on and pick all the games with us tomorrow. Because nobody has come on the show as a guest picker and beat me and Sam yet. You know what the scary thing is? You know who was the closest, Kent?
Who?
Steve Risley.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling he was going to be in there someplace.
I know. He was only a game back. Everybody else we smoked. So, but we dumbed it down for Steve. And I know Steve's listening too. And yeah, I said dumbed it down. Even though we didn't really, but we got to make it sound that way. All right. We got any COVID updates, Sam?
The Ravens had no personnel test positive for COVID-19. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So they just got Marlon Humphrey back from the COVID list. So it's kind of player on, player off at this point. I mean, overall, we haven't had a game moved, I think, in 2 or 3 weeks at this point. So we've had a few weeks here where we haven't moved a game. It seems like even though case numbers nationally are going up, and even though we had players and personnel test positive, the NFL is finding a way to kind of continue with this normal schedule. So I wouldn't anticipate any major ramifications from this.
Do you think there's any danger as this season goes on of maybe the season ending short of completion, Kent?
Well, they've got contingencies for it, including 16 teams getting into the playoffs and keeping the playoffs while the regular season would go away early. But I think that they're doing a good job. And I think that the players, I know from the Colts perspective, they are really 53 guys, the practice squad, all these guys, the staff, they are taking it really, really seriously and trying to do everything they can to, with COVID, turn that kind of into a competitive advantage. And so I at least from a local perspective, I think the Colts are going to be okay.
Yeah, but nobody cares about the Colts. We're just worried about the Bengals.
Yeah, the Bengals, America's team, right?
Yes, the Bengals are America's team. What? Why are y'all laughing?
You know what? The Colts are kind of I get what you're saying about the Colts, but if anything, the Bengals are less relevant.
No, they're not, because the Bengals have Joe Burrow. You got Phillip Rivers. Your relevancy ends and probably by next year. Hell, it might end by tonight, Kent.
This might, you know what, and that's an interesting thing about tonight's game is I think tonight's game is going to go a long way toward kind of carving a path for the Colts as to whether they bring him back.
Yeah, and I think with the Colts, maybe you're better off losing then. Because I don't think you're ever going to win a Super Bowl with Phillip Rivers at this age right now.
Never went to a Super Bowl with the Chargers. And, you know, it's awful hard after in a 17-year career where you haven't done something yet to all of a sudden start doing that thing.
Yeah, and the problem with the Colts is you need a quarterback and you need wide receivers also. I mean, they've got to have some skill position players.
Yeah, they screwed up. They drafted Paris Campbell and instead of taking his teammate Terry McLaurin. They should have taken McLaurin out of Ohio State with that pick. They took Campbell and they're getting burned for it. And I said it at the time. McLaurin's a local kid from Indianapolis, just a better receiver overall and a better athlete overall than Paris Campbell.
And remember this, in 1998, if we were doing this show and the Colts were 1-7, I would have just told you, well, the Colts are irrelevant. And then you would have thrown back, but they got Peyton Manning. They won't be irrelevant long. And then the next year they were 11-5 and doing what Peyton Manning did, which was lose home playoff games.
13-3, brother. 13-3.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They were the 1 seed and Peyton choked it away. I forgot about that.
Let's see if Joe Burrow can, lay claim to being the next Peyton Manning at some point.
I hope he doesn't, because I think he's a lot better than that.
The Manning?
Yeah, Manning's overrated.
Oh, God.
Manning wasn't even the best quarterback while he played.
That's inarguable.
Oh, so he was better. Wait a second. So Peyton Manning was better than Tom Brady.
Yes, Peyton Manning was better than Tom Brady. If Peyton Manning had Tom Brady's defenses during the 2000s, he would have won 4 Super Bowls.
How about this? If Tom Brady would have had Marvin Harrison and all those stud offensive weapons, Edgerrin James, he would have still beaten Peyton Manning if Tom Brady would have given him his defense.
From what was it, like 06 through his movement to Denver, I don't think the Patriots beat the Colts.
Let me ask you this. The Patriots and the Colts played what? Was it 15 or 16 times?
Yeah.
And Manning won 3 or 4. Sam's looking it up because he's got those quick fingers.
I'm interested to hear what that is. But Peyton Manning, I don't know, maybe it was you had to watch him, but sitting behind the end zone at Lucas Oil Stadium and watching him at the RCA Dome with a minute and a half left, every single first half, he played with a minute and a half left. It was ding, 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 touchdown. He scored so often that it was like, all right, we got a minute and a half left. Let's see how they score. It was like watching a guy play Madden, for God's sake.
Tom Brady did that in 4 Super Bowls. Tom Brady did that in 4 Super Bowls. He won more than 4, but he did go down the field against the Rams, win the Super Bowl. He drove them down against the Panthers, won the Super Bowl. Hell, he was down 28-3, won the Super Bowl. He was down and had to drive the length of the field twice against the Seattle Seahawks defense, just one of the greatest in NFL history, and he did it twice in the last 10 minutes of the game, and he won the Super Bowl.
Yep, he did.
The record between Manning and Brady's leading 11-6.
11-6. So he's won 2 for every one he's lost, pretty much.
Yeah, but he's not the only guy in the field.
But Mason.
What was that, Kent?
What? I didn't hear Sam.
Oh, it doesn't matter what Sam said. Also, by the way, Bobby Sheridan agrees with you, Kent. He thinks Peyton Manning was better than Tom Brady also.
Bobby Sheridan.
There you go.
Genius.
Yeah, Bobby Sheridan. Yeah, whatever. If we're betting baseball games. I'm just giving Bobby a hard time, but there's no doubt Tom Brady's the greatest quarterback that ever lived. What's Peyton Manning done this year?
Well, sadly, it's hard to compare Peyton Manning to Brady after 2015. So he went to 4 Super Bowls. He won 2 of them.
And he threw a disastrous pick 6 to lose one. And,
if Hank Baskett catches that onside kick that the Saints pulled at the beginning of the second half, that game is over. That game was lost by Bill Polian, for God's sake, when he pulled his starters off the field in week 15 or in that 15th game against the Jets. That thing was a catastrophe. Don't get me started.
Didn't Tony Dungy take them off the field?
Huh?
Didn't Tony Dungy take the players off the field?
Yeah, but that was engineered by Polian. That was a joint decision where Polian said, hey, if we, at this point in the game, we're going to yank guys, and that wasn't a Dungy decision. That was a Polian decision.
Why was Tony Dungy even coaching there then?
After that, he was done, right?
Yep, that's what I'm saying. I'm not a big Tony Dungy fan. All I know is this: in Tennessee,
it wasn't Dungy; it was Caldwell.
Oh, okay. I don't like him either, but I don't like anybody. But all I know is this: in Tennessee, Peyton Manning never could win the big game. As soon as he left, T. Martin did. So it's the same thing with Brett Favre. You could say that Peyton Manning didn't, but he had the players to have. I mean, there was a lot of these times, Kent, where he had the best record. He was the 1 seed, and the Chargers come in and beat him in the playoffs. That Titans team came in and beat him in the playoffs. That happened a lot where he had home field advantage and lost in the playoffs.
And what was the difference? The difference was Mike Vanderjagt as a kicker versus Adam Vinatieri. The difference was Nick Harper as a defensive back. They get the fumble. Bettis fumbles, puts it on the carpet as the Steelers are ready to put it away. And somehow or another, he runs into Ben Roethlisberger instead of cutting and going the other way because his girlfriend the night before stabbed him in the thigh. That's not on Peyton Manning. That's on Nick Harper's taste.
See, I would think this. That season, the Colts were the best team in football, or the second best team, probably the best team in football. The fact that that game comes down to one play at the end, I will say that Peyton Manning has something to do with that. Peyton Manning was not the throw-in for 450 yards every playoff game, especially championship games, that he was in the regular season. Tom Brady doesn't have the regular season numbers because he performed when it was clutch time.
And because Adam Vinatieri made kicks.
He's got to put them in position. Against the Rams with 1:20 left, they get the ball on their own 15. John Madden on the show says with a rookie quarterback, you never try to get in field goal position. Brady throws 4 passes, completes 4 passes. Adam Vinatieri kicks a field goal. Against the Panthers, he goes 5 for 5, gets them in the field goal range. So you can't say that because if he doesn't get Adam Vinatieri in range to kick a field goal, they're not going to kick a field goal, Kent.
But you can because Manning did the exact same thing, getting Vanderjagt into field goal range, and then Vanderjagt missed it.
Did Vanderjagt miss that? See, this is the thing. You always give me, Will, the pick 6 wouldn't have mattered if we'd have caught the onside kick. The point is this. He threw the pick 6 with the game on the line, and it was a bad throw.
Terrible throw.
So
who caught it was from Indiana University.
Well, yeah, because all great football players come from Indiana University. I've been trying to tell Sam that the Cincinnati Bearcats are going to play the Indiana Hoosiers in the Final Four of college football's playoffs.
And you saw the new rankings. It's not. You saw the new rankings actually moved Cincinnati down for some reason.
I know, because it's a communist plot to keep all the NCAA teams making the million. Hey, it's the Power 5. They're not giving up any of that money for a Final Four. Cincinnati could beat Alabama and Georgia on the same day, and they would just move them to 5.
You're right.
And they would keep Alabama and Georgia at 3 and 4.
And they're right to, because nobody wants to watch the Bearcats.
Yeah, they do. Nobody wants to watch Alabama and Georgia. You watch that all the time.
Exactly. Because
it's boring. It's boring.
Cincinnati play football since Brian Kelly was a coach.
Why? They're one of the best teams in football now. They have been for the last 2 years.
What is that? The AAC?
The AAC last year was better than the Big Ten. 5 teams ranked in the top 25. What did the Big Ten have? They have Ohio State and what?
Crackers.
Who do they have? Ohio State and who?
They had Penn State, who's down this year.
Yeah. Everybody's down in the Big Ten this year because Indiana and Northwestern lead to the East and the West right now.
How about that with 2 Indiana quarterbacks? You got Peyton Manning, Cincinnati kid. You got Michael Penix Jr. down in Bloomington. Indiana was so deep at the quarterback position, they needed 2 Indiana quarterbacks to face each other in the Big Ten championship game come December.
That would be great. And then Indiana will go on to beat Alabama and Clemson in the Final Four.
Hey, what, Mike? I would relish that.
See, Sam goes to Clemson, so he's a Clemson homer. And the problem is Clemson just lost to Notre Dame. And I really believe Indiana would beat Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame's that good. Ian Book played the greatest game of his life. He doesn't consistently play that way. I'll take Michael Penix in a big situation over Ian Book.
You know, Penix is only good, really. Well, it all turned around in that Penn State game where he was terrible until the last minute 40. And then all of a sudden he got really good and really accurate, and he's kind of ridden that wave since. All
right. Bobby Sheridan wants to know your take on Victor Oladipo.
Victor Oladipo is an enigma. And enigmas don't play well, I don't think, in Indianapolis. I don't think they're going to move him before the trade deadline during the season because I don't think his value is great at this point. I don't think there's a general manager crazy enough to give up what Kevin Pritchard's going to need in order to turn Victor loose. But Victor Oladipo is a problem with the Pacers. Malcolm Brogdon is the leader of that team, and Victor Oladipo would like to be the leader of that team, and that's problematic for the Pacers. And that's got to get sorted out before they become as good as they're going to be.
All right, Sam, what do you think? I know you watch the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, Oladipo and Sabonis came over together, I believe, to Indiana in the same trade. And right now, if you had to ask me which one's more valuable, it's Sabonis. I mean, when they take him out of the playoffs, have Oladipo come back, and he doesn't come back fully healthy for the playoffs. Sabonis leaves the bubble, he doesn't come back. And suddenly, I mean, they get blown out by the Heat. I think it would be a much closer game if you have Sabonis there. He's the most, not maybe defensively, but most complete offensive player in the team potentially, because he can score, he can rebound, he can pass. There's a little bit of everything for you. So to me, is maybe the most valuable player on that. Brogdon number 2, and Brogdon is the leader of that team. And to me, Oladipo is a guy who, I mean, it's sort of like John Wall. You don't know what you're going to get from him. I really can't put much value behind him, which is why you're not going to get good trade value out of the guy. So it's a very tricky situation. I think they hope he comes back. You try to play him a little bit, hope he looks good, and maybe sell him if you can. But I have no idea what they're going to do there. I would trade for him if I'm a competitive team right now.
Yeah, I don't watch the NBA anymore. I don't watch the NBA anymore. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson retired. What?
Back.
It doesn't seem that long ago, Kent, does it really?
8 years ago. It's a long time.
But it doesn't seem that long, does it?
No, it doesn't. It seems.
I just heard Tommy Heinsohn died.
Yeah, 86 years old. What a great dude.
He was maybe the worst commentator on games on CBS, though, because he'd do the Celtics and Lakers, and you could tell Tommy was cheering for the Celtics, and Tommy probably had maybe drinking something, too, while he was doing the game.
Tommy knew what his clientele was. He served his clientele, which is the greater Boston metropolitan area.
Kit, did you see all the news coming out of Houston last night for the Rockets?
Hey, real quick, Victor Oladipo, did you see this? Reportedly asked other teams, can I come play with you all in front of his Pacers teammates? It happened with the Raptors, Heat, Knicks, and somebody else. But that's a tweet that was just put out by somebody.
Victor's a really interesting guy. I think Victor, when he was at Indiana, I got to know him a little bit. He was a different kind of character. And then I think once he started making real money, he kind of became this CEO iconic version of himself. And that's not an easy fit within that locker room. And you saw Paul George kind of go through that same metamorphosis. And it didn't work for Paul George either. It doesn't work with the fans here, and it doesn't work with his teammates here. And that's a problem with Victor Oladipo. And I love the guy. I mean, Victor Oladipo is a special human being. On game days, any Sunday, that dude goes to mass at 8 o'clock, sits with the rest of the congregation, and he's just a really good, decent dude. But where it comes to running his business, and despite what he said, where he wants to win a bunch of trophies, what Victor's really good at is managing Victor the brand instead of winning basketball games.
Okay, Sam, go ahead. Houston Rockets.
No, I was just going to talk about all the Houston news that came out the other night. It was a bunch of players who were Rockets were handling them. I think Westbrook came out and asked for a trade. Harden said he's still committed to the Rockets, but there seems to be willing to go to if there was a trade situation. When that starts happening, you have to start wondering about that commitment between the two sides. Obviously, they brought in a new general manager, a new head coach. And there was a pair of players, I'm going to pull up the list, who were upset with how everything was handled. I think it was PJ Tucker was upset with his contract, which isn't like altogether too shocking. But there are situations as well where Eric Gordon was time, Daniel House was upset. Austin Rivers felt like there was special treatment to guys like Harden and Westbrook in the sense that he wasn't treated fairly, and they got to yell at other guys without any accountability. And then Trevor Ariza said he wasn't going to re-sign with the Rockets because he had left them at one point, saying he wouldn't come back to them because he didn't like the organization. So, and that all came out in a flurry of like an hour or two the other night.
Why's everybody got to be such a baby anymore?
Making $30 million a year isn't enough.
Yeah, dude, I'm making $30 million a year. I'd be cutting their grass. Well, I'd manscape them. All right. Anything else we want to talk about? Are we going to have an Indiana basketball show this year, Kent?
Well, I think we should.
No, I mean, is there going to be a season so we can?
I think there is going to be a season, and we're 13 days away from the opener, and I think Indiana's going to have this buttoned down. I think Dolson is going to be uh, really regimented in how he deals with COVID, but it takes two to tango, right? So the rest of the Big Ten, they got to step into line. Indiana, sadly, not going to Maui this year. The Maui Classic's going to be in Asheville, North Carolina. But I think Indiana's got a chance to be pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's a big drop off from going to Maui to Asheville, North Carolina.
A little bit.
Little bit. All right. You can follow Kent where on Twitter?
At Kent Sterling, we make it easy for you.
And KentSterling.com still?
Always.
And you can follow Sam Teets at SamTeets33. You can follow me at Grueling Truth. You can hear us every day at 1 o'clock on the NFL show. We doing the college football show tonight, Sam?
Yeah, whenever you're ready for it. We're doing it at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. I got football practice tonight. And then Kent, we'll start Indiana Basketball Weekly maybe a week from Monday. That puts us a couple days before the start, but because I'll be in Panama City coaching football. Teets is doing a great job, but you're always the GOAT, Mike. See, Bobby's still my favorite. But, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you can check out Kent Sterling at KentSterling.com. And make sure you go to manscaped.com, promo code TGT20 to make your balls happy and get 20% off your first purchase and free shipping. So for now, for Kent Sterling, Sam Teets, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening and watching to The Grueling Truth, where the legends